Thanks for joining me again. I want to thank everyone that stuck along for the journey of this Ideology of Hip Hop series. I want to conclude with the consumers and the consumers' role in help spreading this ideology. If you look at the sales of hip hop music over the last 15 or so years, you'd find that this music is consumed in large parts at the sales level by suburban white teenagers, early 20 college age kids, and hip hop music, like movie genres of apocalyptic films or like gangster movies, they have the ability to allow someone to live an existence or reality different than their own, if it's only just for a short time. So the ability to escape your reality and live another reality vicariously without having to have any of the harm associated with it is something very desirable for a lot of people trying to escape the monotony of day-to-day life. Hip-hop music and the fashion, the culture, all those things have been very attractive to many people inside this country and, in foreign countries. You can go to any nightclub in the world and, you can hear hip-hop music. You can go to Australia and hear hip-hop tunes in clubs with no minorities, no African Americans, none of the people that made the music. You can find their influence and the cultural influence of hip hop globally spread. So there's no denying that it has earned its place in the whole Americana idea of what's spread. The reality is that some of it is positive, the majority of it is negative. It's a negative imagery of black men and life in the inner city. It's twofold, though. I mean, some of that is the reality of what's going on, and then some of it has been glamorized and has become the hyper reality of what's going on. But for the average consumer, it's like any other thing. I mean, going to see a superhero movie. I mean, you can escape the reality of who you are for a little bit, and you can become empowered. What differs from some of the apocalypse movies or superhero movies is that with hip-hop culture, you can put on the baggy jeans, you can put on the Timberlands, you can put on the hooded sweatshirts, and you can assume this identity and all that comes with that identity. You can throw on a chain and a do-rag, and you can have a certain identity. You can be perceived a way in the world. So it's a way that some people without power can become powerful, even if that power is associated with negativity. And it needs to be mentioned that there is a certain element into the consumer's ideology. For some people, living in the suburbs, being able to turn up the music, throw on a hat backwards and grit on people, so to speak, to throw on a gold chain and to get your arms tatted up and to go out in the world where no one knows you and to be perceived a certain way is something that hip-hop has that a lot of genres of music really don't have. I mean, you can throw on country western gear and go to a rodeo and you'd be perceived a certain way, but that perception really isn't tied to any kind of fear in society, whereas if you show up at a mall dressed like 50 Cent with a bulletproof vest on, a backwards hat, wave cap, and some baggy shorts and Timbs, there is a fear that the average person will have when encountering you, and we'd be naive not to say that isn't a real element. So for some of the powerless in society, hip-hop culture and the negative aspects of hip-hop culture has granted them a place to have power where in their everyday life they might not have power, and it gives them the security of not having to go out and do the things to acquire that power. It's how powerful the uniform and the outfits can be. I really wish it wasn't that way, because sometimes a kid with a baggy shorts on and a sweatshirt, sometimes that kid just came from the gym. Sometimes that kid's a good kid that just, forgot his belt at home. And that's not always the case. And I'm not trying to circumvent someone's natural instincts, to be fearful in a situation where maybe fear is appropriate. but to stereotype a whole class or genre of music based on its worst elements is something that we have done in this culture for a long time. So that's the whole purpose of putting together these videos, and that's the whole purpose of the writing, and that's the whole purpose of trying to bring the consciousness of these ideologies out and into the open for people, something for people to think about in the foreground. Because while ideology and the use of ideology can be useful to determine, maybe what certain people think or feel about certain situations, it isn't a perfect science, and you can be wrong, and it does leave room for negative perceptions of people. And so we've got to counter those things inside of us with positive images. I grew up a child of the hip-hop generation. I love the music. I'll probably always like hip-hop. I'll be an old man listening to the music I was listening to in the 80s and the 90s, and I'm comfortable with that. But the fact that so much negativity has been associated with it, that, I could be coming from the gym listening to the music I grew up listening to, and people would be fearful of my existence, is, it saddens me in many ways, but that's the world we live in. There will be future videos. I appreciate everyone's support. Once again, thanks for joining me on this ride, and a lot of the materials that was covered in this series can be found at thoughtwrestler.blogspot.com. Peace.